Well, I read the first chapter to science fiction and I thought it deserved a short video. And I do believe this book by Michael Shermer will be a very interesting book indeed because it is so different from everything else that I've ever read. And in the first book, in the first chapter, talks about how he studied for about 6 hours the day before on being a psychic. He's not a psychic. He doesn't believe in ESP or anything like that, and he goes into how he studied what he could on palm reading and tarot cards and just a variety of stuff. And I didn't really enjoy all the details about him, you know, um, basically playing these women um, because he's not a psychic. So I really like the conclusion. It's on page 18 of his book, and I'll read um, the disclosure and the grace of scruples. Our original plan was to tell all the subjects after the reading that this was just a setup to expose psychic phonies and nothing more than scam artists out to rip off people. We're not particularly worried about the college age subject because, after all, the biggest crisis in your life is trying to decide whether to major in theater, arts, or English, the versity of the psychic's reading is a minor wrinkle in the greater cosmic scheme. But for the last two readings, we decided that they needed to be handled a little bit more delicately. Bill and the producers came up with this explanation. Quote, "We wanted you to know that Michael is not a psychic. He is a psychologist. We wanted to see if he can do what psychics do in terms of in terms of so-called intuitive readings. While we realized that this probably seemed real to you, it was not real for Michael in any psychic sense." End quote. The grace of scruples. I am not a psychic. I do not believe in ESP, telepathy, clairvoyance, clairaudience, or any other form of PSI power has any basis whatsoever in fact. There is not a shred of evidence that any of this is real, and the fact that I could do reasonably well with only one day of preparation just shows how vulnerable people are to those very effective non nostrums. I can only imagine what I could do with more experience. Give me 6 hours a day for practice with a couple of months, and I have no doubt that I could easily host a successful syndicated television series and increase by orders of magnitude my current bank balance. There, for the grace of evolved moral sentiments and guilt-laden scruples, go I. This is the part that I really like. I cannot do this for one simple reason. It is wrong. I have both. I have lost both my parents. My father suddenly of a heart attack in '86. My mother slowly from brain cancer in 2000. And I cannot imagine anything more insulting to the dead, the more insidious to the living, than constructing a fantasy that they are hovering nearby in the psychic ether, awaiting some self-proclaimed psychic conduit to reveal to me breathtaking insights about scarred knees, broken appliances, and unfulfilled desires. This is worse than wrong. It is wanton depravity. I really like this guy because he puts it as it is. Because there are a lot of frauds out there. Now, I'm not going to go as far as to say that every single psychic is a fraud, but I would say probably 80% of them are. And, you know, I really like that because it doesn't really matter to me if there's a ghost in the house or not and your loved one is around you or whatever, because it goes into talking to the dead and stuff like that in that chapter. But his point is save the people money. You don't need to con them out of their money. There's, you know, the underlying thing is people can do better things with their money than going to a psychic. Maybe you can do something a little bit more practical. Make make a payment on your car, or I don't know, get something nice for your kids, or you know, um, maybe you lost your husband. Well, instead of going to a psychic to find out how he is, maybe you can get a nice bouquet of flowers and go to the, grave. Something a little bit more practical. And I like that first chapter. I'm reading chapter 2, and it's about the wording behind calling freethinkers brights, and how freethinkers want to be called what they would rather be called. And surprisingly, in this chapter, a lot of free thinkers and critical thinkers, they don't want to be called brights. Now, I only started reading chapter 2. I'm not that far into it. So, but from chapter 1, I can see this will be a very interesting read. And for anyone that considers themselves a free thinker or a critical thinker, you might want to pick up this book, science fiction, and you might want to buy it, or you might want to check it out at the library if you don't feel you want to buy it, and read it. It is truly just a different read that I have. Um, I really didn't expect to be, uh, for lack of a better word, I guess, intrigued, and kind of just wow, that's really cool. But you know, um, we'll see how it goes for the rest of the book. But I think I'm gonna like the book. I think I'm gonna like the book, and I'll mark the chapters. If I like the chapters, or um, and see, you know. But yeah, and hopefully I can put this on my recommended reading list. I mean, not just one chapter, but the entire book. That would be really cool to do that, because I've never read anything like this before. So there it is, under 8 minutes.